Welcome to Shallow. One podcast, two time zones, diving deep into a new topic every week. From pop culture to beauty and wellness trends, careers and ambitions, these conversations flood our WhatsApp inboxes and social media feeds. Dialing in from Sydney, Australia and London, UK, we're asking the same question. Is it really that deep?
The shallow take: having a baby is just what adults do. But these days, starting a family feels less like a milestone and more like a luxury. Between the cost of living, climate anxiety, and the price of childcare, having kids isn't just emotional, it's financial. This week, we're asking, is choosing not to have children a personal decision or one we've been backed into? Are we selfish? Are we realistic? Or are we just tired? Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Shallow, and this episode is for everyone who's ever whispered, I kind of want kids, and then they've opened their banking app and changed their mind. We're talking about babies, and more specifically, what it means to even consider having one in the year of our Lord, 2025. But before all of that, Lucy, Boosie, I need a recommendation from you, but firstly, the caveat is we cannot speak about the weather in this season, because every episode we spoke about the weather last season. I know we're Brits.
So on my do not talk list is the weather, but also the Marvellous Mrs. Maisel, because that was brought up to me also. It's like every episode you mentioned Marvellous Mrs. Maisel, which I'm doing now. So yeah, no weather.
It was the new Taylor Swift.
No Maisel. But I do have a recommendation today, and it's nothing to do with going in the sun, in the weather, anything like that. It's actually, I've got it here. It's the Jizzoo. Honey Gloss Ceramide Therapy mask.
I think it's Gizoo. Jizzoo. If you're not watching this, Lucy is now like horizontal on her sofa, bawling. Okay. I think is it Gizoo? Is it Jizzoo?
Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah, the thing you should know about me is when I was a kid and I used to start laughing, like I would go if it really hit me, I would go hysterical and it would turn into crying every time. Yeah. So that
you got the giggles.
What you just witnessed. I'm sorry about the Gizoo problem that we just had. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I really like the packaging. I think they've done a really good job of the packaging. It's like a little honeycomb. Oh God. And it smells really nice. And also, it's really good. It's really good. It's one of the only like hair masks that I've put on, and afterwards, like it's felt really good. But like it's felt good for like days after, not just for like the day after. So I would recommend. I think it's like a little bit of a TikTok special as well. Honestly, I need to work on my influencer PR.
I'm gonna say influencer
intros.
Era. Welcome. So let's go from kind of baby boom to baby bust. There was a time when having a kid was just what you did. Now it doesn't feel like we're in that same space. Whether it's cost of housing, career insecurity, climate dread, can we even afford a child even if we wanted to? And falling fertility rates are happening globally. So they're down from 2.25 from 3.31 in 1990. That's from the UN. In Australia, the fertility rate has hit an all-time low of 1.5. And in the UK, fertility is falling faster than any other country in the G7. And according to the State of the World Population Report, millions of people around the world are unable to have the number of children they desire. And I think it's so easy to see and understand why. I don't think it's ever been this hard to fathom having a child, right?
I mean, so the cost of living of just being in the UK and just existing is so high. I mean, you do a grocery shop for your weekly, shopping, it's like 100, 150. You go to Sainsbury's or Tesco's and you get dinner for the night and you've spent £20. And it's like, these things add up. If you're spending £20 a day just on your dinner, and then you have your lunch costs, you have your other food costs, you have your bills, you have your rent, your mortgage, if you're lucky enough to have a house, which a lot of us are not, and there isn't, the future for that is pretty dire for a lot of Brits in the UK, especially in our age range between like 25 to 35, it's like it seems unobtainable, right? So up to the age of 18, the cost of raising a child in the UK alone is £166,000 for couples, and £220,000 if you're a lone parent, which is from the Child Poverty Action Group, which is crazy to me. And I think the fact that, you know, the Child Poverty Action Group has given you that statistic kind of says it all. It's that word poverty. It's like when you hear those numbers, you think, oh my God, that's going to bankrupt me. That's going to take all my money. And that in turn, like, yeah, instantly that for me puts me off, because I'm like, well, where am I going to, you know, pull £166,000 from over the next 18 years? Like, you know, a lot of people are on like 25k a year salaries, you know, pushing 30 maybe. And everything is going up, inflation, food costs, everything. So yeah, it's scary, isn't it?
It is scary, because you do think, yeah, where am I going to pull this cash from? And also that's if they even leave the house at 18, which, let's be honest, is quite unlikely as well, because can they even afford to leave home? Obviously, yes, there's university, but that's also going to land you in some debt as well. And this also isn't just a UK problem. In 2025, the Lending Tree study indicates that raising a child in the US now averages nearly $300,000 over 18 years, about $17,000 to $36,000 annually, dependent on the state. And then if you want to raise 2 kids and chuck college on top of that, the New York Post said that's around $876,000 at that time. And then in Oz, it's looking at about $160,000 over 18 years. And it's just like, you look at those statistics and then you look at the life we're living. As you say, a lot of people are renting, a lot of people on that kind of, yeah, maybe 20 to 40k salary bracket. And it's like, okay, well, I can, you know, make rent, get some food in, and I might have a little bit left over to chuck to one side for savings. Where am I going to get childcare costs from? Like, where am I going to pull that from?
And also, like, the idea of having a kid up to the age of 18, it costing you that much, and thinking to yourself, well, a lot of people I know are still living with their parents, you know, pushing 30, or, you know, have to live with their parents because they can't afford rent, or, you know, their wages are too low. And if you think about that, and then you're thinking, okay, so it's going to be past the age of 18, so that cost is going to go up, regardless of whether they go into employment or school. You know, they're going to maybe need help, yeah, with education costs. And how am I going to afford that if I can't even afford to, like, live myself now? And the thought of maybe having some, you know, your child living with you for 10 years plus after that, you're thinking, yeah, when am I going to get rid of this? And okay, I'm not going to say it's not an emotional burden because they're your child. And that's a different, you know, episode altogether. But the financial burden of having, you know, that it's not like having a dog where, you know, they're probably that you're not going to have them past 10 years. Like, this is for life. Like, this is, you know, they're going to see you through to old age, you know, and if you can't support them financially, and if you're not in a kind of mental state to provide, then how is that going to be possible?
It's tough. It does feel more like it's shifting from default and a given to a decision now, and obviously economically as well, like lower fertility rates, whilst I guess on the surface it is probably better for the environment, there's less pressure on it if we're producing less people who are consuming all this stuff, but obviously it also does lead to that top heavy economy. There's obviously an increase in pensioners, less working age people, and that also can put strain on finances as well. I think another thing I want to tap into is, obviously, as you know, we've been grown up, socialized as women, we've been raised to kind of want it, or maybe even expect it, right?
I mean, yeah, like I remember saying to my friend when I was like 18, she was like, oh, when do you think you'll have children? And I was like, oh, probably when I'm like 25, you know? And in that, so funny. And like, literally, like, now thinking about that, I'm kind of horrified, because I was kind of like, yeah, that'll probably be when I'll have like a house, I'll have like my shit together, like I'll feel ready then. Like in my head, like 25, I would be like, I'll be ready then. And I didn't even question it at that point. I was just like, oh yeah, probably then. And it wasn't even the question of, do I want them though? do I actually want that for myself? And I think that's a big question to ask yourself when you're like 18, 19. You don't know whether you want to, but I think to take away from that is the default of my brain going to, yes, I will, and probably then. And it, like, I know in myself, when I said that, I didn't want children. Like, I was like, I don't want children. I don't want to think about that. I should have just said that. But no, it's that kind of expectation to be like, oh, well, but when are you going to? And, you know, as me and you kind of push towards that 30 mark, obviously that pressure becomes a little bit more intense. And, you know, we've got body clocks, we're women, we have, you know, but I can't remember the age that they used to call women geriatric parents, but it was early 30s, which is pretty disgusting.
Gross.
Yeah, I just hate that word geriatric, just for anybody in general. It's just a horrible word. But yeah, what about you? Do you remember a time where you kind of thought, actually, no, I don't maybe want children right now, or I don't want to think about that? Like, when did you feel like you kind of woke up in a sense?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think because for me, I've never actually wanted them, and I've always been quite honest about that, especially when I was younger. I think now I'm going through some things that are potentially changing my mind, but if I had £1 for every time someone said, even as a kid, you'll change your mind, you're just not there yet, you'll change your mind, like, it is that expectation that as a female, this is what you're made for. And yeah, we kind of are, with, you know, going back all the million years, cave people, all the rest of it, like, yeah, we're built for it. But it is that expectation that if you're a woman, you are raised to want to raise a family. It's almost like ingrained in you. And I would always have those comments of like, you'll change your mind, you'll change your mind, you'll change your mind. And I think knowingly or not, those comments do seep into you, because you're like, well, what if I don't change my mind? Is there something wrong with me? And yeah, obviously we're cranking up to 30 now, and then yeah, you're having the conversations with friends or doctors of being like, you know, do you want to freeze your eggs? You don't want to have a baby too old. And I'm like, I just feel like I'm just now turning into an adult, quite frankly. Like, I mean, mentally I feel like I'm 24, but I think only now do I feel like I have slight structures in place that mean I'm, you know, turning into an adult human. I don't feel like I'm I'm there to make a decision about raising another human. Yeah, like, it's just scary.
Do you think that this is a generational shift? Because obviously, you know, previously when, you know, families had children, you know, not everybody has their life together. Not everybody is, you know, got a mortgage and a successful career with sufficient time off. And like, you know, not the dominoes don't always like fall in a straight line, right? They, you know, sometimes people just have children and then they have children and that's it. Do you think that our age group and our generation are changing our mind because of kind of trying to break out of those norms, the cost of living, you know, all those kind of things that, you know, we'll dive a little bit deeper into? But do you think that that's a shift that's happening?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think you can see that through the declining fertility rate. We're not alone in our thinking. This is a global, I don't say issue, but like it's obviously a global train of thought, is that like, you know, can I afford to? Is the world set up for me to produce a family? Do I want to bring another life form into this world? At this stage, like, sorry, it's a bit bleak, but like, you know, the world's not in a great place right now. And, you know, I can only really speak for myself, but when you look at those overall statistics, I think it's very hard to deny that this collective consciousness isn't going down the road of actually, you know, even if I did want them, could I even have them?
Yeah, I know. And obviously, yeah, there's the declining like fertility rates, as in people are just choosing not to. But there is also the kind of increase in lack of fertility as well. Like, that is, I mean, I don't have the exact statistics, but that is something that is also at the back of people's minds, of course. And, you know, you see, I can't remember specifically what countries they are, but they that almost like persuading people to have children now. I think it may be like an Asian country like Japan. They're giving people baby bonuses, and I'm thinking, is that going to come to the UK? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like people pop them out like nothing here. Like, I'm from Hull, so like that's it's just standard.
But I don't think it changes the systemic reason that people are choosing not to have them, right? Like you can dish out, you know, I think there was chatter about a baby bonus here in Australia, and you know, you can dish out a couple of grand, but realistically, you look at those numbers, it's not touching the sides loose.
Can I have £166,000, please, as a bonus, and then I might consider it.
Yeah, like it's literally that, and just like, you know, we're seeing rollback of healthcare, the cost of housing, the fucking cost of eggs. Do you know what I mean? Like all of this stuff, you can dish out a few G's, but like, does it actually solve the problem? No.
The cost of eggs, or the cost of your eggs. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I know. I sorry, I just had to jump in there with something inappropriate. I'm going
so heavy-handed. Keep it light.
No, it is a heavy subject, and also like selfishly, I want to be a bit selfish. I think as well, I mean, from my perspective, like moving to a capital city, moving to a very fast-paced city and a very fast-paced job and career, you know, naturally my brain isn't on like baby making and homemaking, like it's on making money to serve myself so I can have a better life, so I can, you know, personally, to go and see the world, to experience things. And of course, not everybody has that luxury, and I'm privileged in saying that. You know, if you're from a smaller town or a smaller city and you've got a more of a stable job that has 6 months, you know, maternity leave there waiting for you, it can be a little bit more inviting, or you can think, okay, maybe, you know, I'm not going to be, you know, flush with cash, but for me personally, it's worth it, and I really want that. But I don't think that I could physically and emotionally and financially do that at the same time as living in a city like London and working in the film and TV industry, which is what I work in. And I just want to touch on that for a second, because I work in a very male-dominated industry. And I'm a freelancer, so I do contracts, and then I'll have time off, and then I do another contract. There is no kind of like continuing contract where I can potentially be like, okay, I'm pregnant, and now I'm going to tell my boss, and yeah, I'm going to go on maternity leave. Yeah, there's just nothing. There's none of that. So if I wanted to have a child, I would have to literally not take on any more work and be unpaid. And that financial burden is too much. When you're thinking about bringing a child into the world, and you're thinking about all the things you need to buy for it, all the things you're going to continue to buy for it, you know, how you're going to look after yourself, how you're going to pay your rent, how, you know, how is your partner's mental health going to be if he's working, you know, a ridiculous amount to try and make up for it. You know, there's all these things that, you know, it's not just like a cute baby at the end of the day. It's like, it's afterwards. It's how do I get back into work? And I know a lot of women in film and TV have found it very difficult to come back because, you know, people maybe are not as understanding about childcare, about having to leave early. There's a lot of like pressure to stay past the time, to prove your worth in this industry, because, you know, so many people want to be in your position, and there's no, the empathy kind of gets a bit lost. I think there is a shift happening where women are kind of standing up to it and being like, no, I'm coming back, and here's my friend who's also a mother, and we're going to job share so we can handle the load. And, you know, that seems to be working. But for me, I don't feel like there's something strong and in place for me to even think about that.
Yeah, and I think, again, it goes back to that, like, you know, systemic things that government haven't maybe put in place to make working mothers feel, or even mothers to be, feel comfortable to step out, to step back in again. Because yeah, like I think especially working mums have it so difficult, because, you know, how many times do kids get sick and you then have to, like, that's your child, like that's the priority. But as you say, like, especially in your realm, you know, you're in the freelance universe, you don't get mat leave, you don't get mat pay. You have to fully budget for that and allow for that yourself, and then you obviously have to then get back into it somehow as well, and that's really, really tough. And I think what I want to be really clear on is that we're not like anti baby. It just feels as though the odds are just so much more stacked than they used to be. And I think it's almost turned into a question of like, it's not about whether you necessarily want them, it's whether you can realistically have them. And there was a really lovely article, which was, I once thought I needed to have kids, now I'm not so sure, in Vogue. And it's a bit of a long quote, but I think it's worth a read. And she says, I can't pinpoint exactly when my feelings on having children changed, but I guess it was sometime in the last year, a time when many of my best friends had embarked on their own parenting journeys. There's nothing in the world I hold closer than the opportunity to meet the small people my loved ones have created and are working tirelessly every day to raise and nurture. Yet I started to find myself going home from the playground hangs and park dates with friends' kids, feeling excited to go home to a house that contained only my partner, my dog, and a TV loaded up with brand new episodes of The Pit that I could watch for as long as I wanted without worrying about screen time or bedtime or all the work I wasn't doing to pad someone's still theoretical person's eventual college fund. And I think that's a really nice way to almost shape it and look at the other side of it, because, you know, imagine you choose a life where you don't have children. Like, what does that look like to you?
I mean, I think it looks like what I'm living right now, which is kind of like, I can do whatever I want, I can go wherever I want, you know, obviously financial strains on certain things, but if I wanted to go to Southeast Asia for 2 months, you know, I could probably make that work. But if I had a child, probably wouldn't. You know, it's I'm going to go to the gym after work. Oh no, I can't because I've got to pick up the children. These are just things that I go through. So when I'm thinking about, whether, you know, I want children now, imminently, or in the future, I do think of these things. And you do see a lot. I think there's a lot of content online at the moment about, you know, what people are spending their money on when they don't have children, and it's quite intriguing and enticing, because, you know, child-free lives, especially online, and I know not everything online is completely true, but you do see a kind of glimpse into people who don't have such a financial burden and a time burden as well. It's the, you're not going to be able to just go and see your friends. You're not going to be able to just, you know, go down the road. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, you know, people come to me and they say, oh, it was the best thing I ever did, even though it's stressful, even though, you know, it costs me loads of money. Like, I would never change it. But of course you would never change it, because you've had that child. So like, you've got that emotional connection with that child. So you of course you're not going to say, oh, I wish I'd never done this. Although there are some women that do regret it. And I think it is important to note that as well, because I don't think it's always like, oh, you'll never regret it, even if it's, you know, giving you all this dread. Like, I think there's a place where you can still love your child and be happy that they exist, but at the same time regret them. And I've spoken with a few friends about this who've known, you know, women who are grandmothers, and they kind of don't want to look after the grandkids, because they're like, well, I've kind of done it and I'm kind of over it, and I had the kid. I didn't really want to have one at that time, but I didn't really have a choice, and I was very young. Yeah. And now, like, you're coming to me with your grandchild and you want me to look after them all the time, and I don't, you know, not having that maternal instinct is also another part of this conversation, I think, and I think it's an important one. What do you think?
I totally agree. I think also there's a Reddit thread, which it's like maybe like our regret or something, but I've seen a couple of people speak about them openly regretting having kids. And I think in a lot of ways it's quite refreshing, because you're like, I think you're not allowed to really utter those words, are you? Like, after you've had them. Well, obviously you can, but I can see how people might be
very
like,
taboo.
How dare they say that they regret having their lovely bundle of joy? But I think the flip side of that is that maybe they're also mourning the life they could have had, or maybe they were pushed down a certain path. But then also, if you don't have one, you don't know. And I think that's the thing that I'm seeing a lot of friends battle with at the moment is like, do I not have one and potentially regret it for the rest of my life? Or do I have one and potentially regret it for the rest of my life? And I think because we're obviously coming to these decisions a little bit later, in some ways it's a really good thing because you can think this stuff through a little bit more when it's not 21 and we're popping out babies and we almost feel like we don't have a choice. Like, it's a great thing we have more of a choice now. And also people can pursue it without a partner should they want to. I think that's incredible. Like, how liberating is that? But on the flip side, it's really tricky because, like, I just feel like there's no right answer, because there just isn't. If you've been enjoying the episode, can you do us a really quick favour? Drop us a rating or a little review. It helps more people find us, and honestly, we're a little bit needy like that. Takes 2 seconds and means the world. Thanks, guys.
I think as a generation, we are becoming a little bit more selfish in terms of, like, you know, maybe people had children because, it was expected of them and they had them young, and maybe that regret, it's not, you know, that they regret that their child exists, which I think a lot of people jump on instantly when somebody says that. It's that they regret, you know, maybe their independence, or they had them too young, or they regret jumping into something because they felt pressured by society to do it, or, you know, they didn't feel like they had the option to maybe have an abortion. You know, let's say that word, like, maybe they felt like, no, I have to carry this out because, you know, I'm being pressured by my parents or my family members. And, you know, maybe that's a loss of career for them as well, because women do think about this, you know, having a baby sometimes means a loss of career. And I don't think men have the same kind of issue with maybe a loss of career and a loss of identity. I think, you know, a lot of women who are in their 50s and 60s now, who've had, you know, basically had us, you know, maybe dealing with that kind of, who am I and what am I post-menopause, and how do I kind of progress in myself as a person. And I think for the male side, you can kind of have a kid. You're like, oh, well, I'm just going to go back to work now. And I don't have the kind of issues you have around health, about how you're getting your body back to normal after having a baby, after, you know, there's a thing, you know, postpartum depression, like, you know, that is prevalent in a lot of women, and all these things kind of stack up in your mind when you're thinking about it, and you're like, I'm just going to think about that another time. Like, I think this is overwhelming. The financial cost is overwhelming. And
it's so easy to just continue to keep kicking that can down the road, because it is just really fucking overwhelming when you start kind of stacking things up. And, you know, but I know we've said there's like no right answer and no wrong answer. I'm also kind of figuring this out in real time, but there's also a really lovely quote, again, from the same article, where she speaks about, if I don't have one, my life also looks great, but if I do have one, that's also fine too. And, you know, the quote says, I can easily picture having a baby with my partner, but I can also picture eventually getting a second dog to keep our puppy company, or moving to Indonesia for a year, or putting the disposable income we'd save as child-free adults to use to building our dream home. It's not that these aren't things we could do if we have kids, but now that more and more of my friends are weighing the baby question, I've been able to see how freeing it might feel to build my existence around other milestones instead. And I really love that, because I think it's making space for people to be able to also change their mind. Like, we're having this conversation as like, okay, I can't see it in my immediate future, but it's not a never thing. It's both of the ends of the spectrum look pretty good, but one is currently being squeezed a bit more by external factors, would you say?
Yeah, of course, there's these external factors that are all kind of making these decisions for us. But I also think as well, in a way, it is putting us more in a privileged position of choice. You know, although these horrible things, you know, the financial burden, the cost of living, not having a house, sorry, really everything that's going on, you know, everything that's going on in the world, like all these horrible things, it's also giving us a bit more of autonomy that maybe people didn't have 10 to 20 years ago, even 5 years, it's a bit more of a question of like, oh, maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe that is something that I can decide later on. And also, I think the whole geriatric parent thing is awful, but also you can have a baby later in life. That is something that you can consider. And I think the goalposts in terms of like, growing up and kind of the age, like when you look at people who are 30 back in like 1950 and they look really old, it's not, I'm saying that because I'm pushing 30, but like it's not the same now. I think we're aging differently. I think we're not, whether that's because we're staying at home for longer, whether that's because, we have these financial burdens or not, it is a factor. And yeah, we are just babies still. Babies can't have babies in this economy.
No, they can't. And yeah, also like I think medical advancements as well, like you look at, the average living age, I don't know if that's an official thing, but you know what I mean. It's like it's getting older, and the ability to have babies and all the medical stuff we have surrounding us now is so much more advanced than it used to be. But I mean, I think about like when our parents must have had us, and I'm like, how did you do it? But also then again, everyone else was doing it at that time. You could easily buy a house probably on one person's income alone, and that was just the way, wasn't it? Like that's how it went.
I mean, is it crazy to want a baby, or is it just crazy the world makes us feel like it's an impossible decision? And I really do think that this is, personally, from my point of view, I think this is a generational question, because I just don't think people were maybe asking the same questions as we are right now. I think it is down to being a bit more, selfish and looking after yourself, because there are so many scary things happening in the world, and like bringing a child into you maybe not being able to afford, your rent is just is a decision that you have the privilege to make. And if you have a fast-paced lifestyle, like where does a child fit into that? And of course, like people say, oh, you'll just make it work, like it'll just happen, but will it? And do I actually want it? I think that's the main question is that I've taken from this episode. Is it, do I really want it, or am I just being pressured to want it? And I think that's something that you have to really think about. If you have the privilege to do so, then yeah, that's what you have to really think about. But yeah, Phoebe, I've got to ask you the question, as we do with every episode. Having a baby in this economy, is it really that deep?
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely is, isn't it? Like, yeah, cut. But yeah, it is. I think... I don't think parenting and having kids is done. I've got a friend at home who has a beautiful child and is an incredible mother. And, I've got nieces and nephews. They're the best. I love them. I love hanging out with them. I just wonder whether we have so many of these external pressures, and maybe we're the first generation honestly to ask, are we actually ready, or am I just socially conditioned to think this is what I want? And I also just don't think the world is actually currently built to want one, to be honest. I think it being a little bit blunt, a little bit honest, I don't think it's ever been harder to consider this question. It's not, we don't have the roadmap our parents maybe had. It's being ripped up, and I think the world's a pretty tough place to be, and I don't blame people for doubling in, getting a bit selfish, having a fur baby instead, a little kitty or a dog, and looking after number one, because that's kind of what we need to do, and that's also what our bank account is telling us we need to do. And look, maybe it's one of those things that we're living longer, maybe we're just going to come to these decisions a bit later in life when we feel like we're in more of a solid structure, I don't know, we've got a bit more of a foundation to make that call. But I think currently in the year 2025, it absolutely is that deep. How about you?
I think you just answered it. I was like, yes, queen, pop off. No, I do think we do have this, maybe not the privilege of having a house and a mortgage and all these kind of things, but we do have the privilege of maybe thinking things through a bit more and thinking, maybe is this what I want, or is this like what I've been conditioned to be told that I want. And just the kind of the language I think that people use around young girls should maybe change a little bit, because the whole like, oh, you'll change your mind thing is in a way can be a little bit harmful, because you might rush into a decision that might be catastrophic. You might become a single parent, you might rush into something that you're not ready for because you think it's the right thing with the right part, and you don't know whether your partner's right, but you're going to do it anyway because that's just how you think, what you think you should be doing. And that can lead to a whole array of issues, and loss of identity and all those kind of things. And I think as I say it, I think that's the thing that I'm most scared about, is the loss of my identity and the loss of who I am. And of course you go through chapters of your life where you become different people, or you have different jobs, or you meet different friends, and you have these different cycles of life. But ultimately, I don't want to have a child and then completely just have my whole life be about raising that child, and then what do I do after? Long-winded way of saying yes, I think it's really that deep, but yeah, I do.
I think the loss of identity thing is incredibly interesting, and I feel like we could probably do a whole episode on that. But yeah, I think unanimous decision, it is that deep. And now it's time for...
And what a part of bollocks!
This is the part of the show where we chat shit about something insignificant that fucks us off. Boosie Lel, Lucy Bell, it is your turn. What have you got?
Google Maps. I fucking hate Google Maps. This is really... I'm so fed up with Google Maps. So I will put in a destination. I drive a lot for work, so I'll put in a destination. We're like, you go this way, it's going to be fine. Go that way, and it takes me in London down a road that is only accessible to people who live there, and by the time I've turned into it, I've just realised, and then I've got a fine for £160 for going down that fucking road. And I'm like, well, Google Maps sent me down this road, so what am I supposed to do? Also, when it tries to divert you, if there's a crash or whatever, I hate that, because what it'll do is it'll divert you, and then 2 seconds later it'll be like, oh no, actually I think the way that we were originally going was actually better, and then it'll change you back, and you're like, well, I'm fucking going down these country roads now, I can't get onto that way, and it's like, oh, added 40 minutes onto your journey. I'm like, oh my god, can we not get a better technology than this? I know people use Waze, I can't get along with that. I think that was originally for like taxi drivers, but then everyone kind of got onto it. No, it's gone bad because everyone uses it now. So everyone goes on those routes.
For Waze.
So there's no point in going on them, because everyone goes on the Waze routes now. So they're all blocked. And it'll take you down some little tiny little alleyway where you can't fit your car, and you're screaming in your car like, please move.
Waze used to be great, but yeah, I mean, I haven't been in the big city for a while, so maybe, if people are on it too hard. But I do find it a bit nuts with like all this technology. Could we not, sort this out?
Well, yeah, just like oh my God, when it diverts me, I'm like, this is it. This is my evening gone. Because I'm like, honestly, I found myself yesterday going down past, because basically the M4 had a crash and it was diverting me off. And it was like these country roads like this, and I was on them, and I was like, oh, what am I doing? And I was like, I've done it again. I've trusted Google Maps, and I should have just trusted myself. And I ended up trusting myself and just getting back on the M4, and it was fine. And I was like, never trust Google Maps.
Thank you so much for listening to Shallow. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave us a review. It makes a huge difference in helping others to discover the podcast. We always want to hear from you, so feel free to slide into our DMs or follow us on Instagram @shallowpod, or send us an email at shallow@boxedoff.studio. Shallow is a Boxed Off production, written and hosted by Lucy Bell and Phoebe Whittle. We'll see you next time.